In the remote mountains of northwest Pakistan, scattered across the valleys of Bumbaret, Rumbur, and Biryur, lives a little-known group, the Kalash. Comprising only a few thousand people, this community maintains customs that sharply contrast with the traditions of the region. One striking feature is the presence of blue eyes among some members, an unusual trait in that part of Asia. Unlike the Muslim majority surrounding them, the Kalash follow beliefs rooted in animism, revering natural elements and adhering to their own unique rituals. Their practices, so distinct from the local religious norms, often create a sense of separation between them and Pakistani society. Even so, they withstand the passage of time, preserving an identity defined by customs passed down through generations. One of the most intriguing questions about them is the origin of their people. Some suggest that the Kalash might be descendants of soldiers from the time of Alexander the Great, who may have settled in the region thousands of years ago. Whether this theory is true or not remains a mystery, but the interest in their history keeps the search for answers alive and enhances the fascination surrounding this unique group. The Kalash live in a remote corner of Pakistan, surrounded by communities that have embraced Islam over the centuries. While the country has taken a predominantly Muslim path, they've held on to practices and beliefs that trace back to ancient traditions, often linked to early Hinduism. Throughout the 20th century, there was intense pressure for them to abandon their customs, but even persistent conversion campaigns didn't fundamentally alter their identity. Those who gave in found no refuge among their own families, as they were excluded from a community that deeply values preserving its heritage. Their daily lives differ greatly from the rigid norms that define gender roles in the rest of the country. Men and women share spaces for education, work, and leisure, living in relatively balanced conditions. During celebrations, music and dance are enjoyed without gender distinctions, and marriages are more often based on personal connections than family arrangements, standing in stark contrast to the arranged marriages commonly practiced in other parts of Pakistan. Cultural and religious preservation is a vital part of their way of life. Alongside maintaining their egalitarian social structure, the community is dedicated to passing down their religious knowledge, traditions, and stories to younger generations. In the mountains of Pakistan, the Kalash community keeps up a rare tradition for the region, producing and drinking alcohol. In a country where such practices face strict restrictions, their wines and spirits intrigue visitors looking for something out of the ordinary. By preserving this tradition, the Kalash not only capture the attention of outsiders, but also uphold a way of life that stands strong against external pressures, keeping their values alive over time. 3 annual festivals play a central role in this community's traditions. In May, Chilam Joshi welcomes spring and highlights the role of women in local life. As autumn begins, Uchao brings everyone together for dances and celebrations. Then, in the heart of winter, Kamos embodies the deepest traditions, carrying special meaning for all who take part. During Kamos, only adults who are well-versed in the group's practices are allowed to join the ceremonial circle. Those unfamiliar with the rites or who don't meet the established criteria must first go through purification stages. This ensures that only those properly prepared take part in such an important moment for the community's collective identity. In remote areas, the Kalash community preserves rituals that reflect their connection to nature and cultural heritage. For men, a defining test involves a young man heading into the mountains alone, living only with goats. During this time, he survives solely on milk and meat, testing his endurance. Upon returning, he earns the right to participate in the community's most significant festivals. Meanwhile, women go through periods of isolation during specific times, such as menstruation or after giving birth. Separated from the main houses, they stay in a structure called a basialini, avoiding direct contact with their families. Despite the separation, they can still influence social life from a distance by exchanging food, and in some cases, making decisions that could impact personal relationships. These practices are not just physical challenges, but also serve as tools for integration and communication, even when individuals are apart. In the Kalash community, marriage follows an unusual custom. A man who wants to marry a woman stages a prearranged abduction, and once they leave the bride's family home, she moves in with his family. However, tradition requires a second step. About 2 months later, the woman returns to her parents' house for a formal ceremony that legitimizes the union in front of everyone. If, at some point, she decides to remarry, there's a different process. The new suitor must compensate her ex-husband by paying an amount that includes money and gifts, totaling double the original dowry. Divorce is relatively common, and when a woman chooses to end the marriage, the man is expected to accept her decision without resistance. These customs reflect a more open approach to marriage, standing apart from the stricter practices seen in much of Pakistan, where more rigid views on marital relationships prevail. High up in the mountains of Pakistan, Kalash women live by standards that set them apart from the rest of the country. Here they can choose who to marry and decide whether to continue or end the relationship, a freedom that's rare in the region. This stands in contrast to the more restrictive norms in other areas, where women's opinions are often constrained by deeply rooted customs. However, this freedom is more limited when it comes to interactions with people outside the tribe. If a woman marries someone from another community, especially a Muslim, and later returns to her home, she may face challenges. She might be distanced from the social and cultural activities she once participated in, especially the festivals, which are key moments in the community's collective life. Within the tribe, gender roles and responsibilities also follow traditions that don't always ensure balance. Women focus on domestic duties, while men handle physical labor and external negotiations. Some customs, like the separation of spaces for bathing, remain deeply ingrained. So while Kalash women enjoy a level of choice that's uncommon compared to other contexts, they still navigate traditions that limit parts of their autonomy. In the Kalash community, the Kamos festival holds a central place in collective life. Among its many events, there's one called Bubulak, where young people who have just completed a period of isolation return to rejoin the group. This transition sparks curiosity, as it involves rituals and customs that are less understood by outsiders. Some claim that during this stage of the festival, young people can choose partners without restrictions, even involving married individuals. However, the Kalash community strongly denies this interpretation. For them, such a view misrepresents the purpose of Bubulak, which isn't about breaking marital bonds but about reaffirming the value of each individual within the long-standing traditions of their culture. In the Kalash Valley, the community's unique aesthetic captivates those who venture into this landscape. Among the locals, the women stand out with features that, combined with the surrounding scenery, give many the feeling of being in an almost mythical place, often called the Valley of the Fairies. This nickname stems not just from the natural beauty of the area, but also from the way these women present themselves to the world. Their style goes beyond just wearing beautiful clothes. What they wear carries ancient knowledge and connections to the present. The fabrics showcase vibrant colors and intricate details, while their accessories and hairstyles reflect cultural codes passed down through generations. In this way, they keep their heritage alive, not locked in the past but evolving and inspiring those who visit, drawing the attention of casual travelers and curious scholars alike. The blue eyes of Kalash women hold a central place in stories passed down through time. Among the most well-known versions, some believe that their physical traits might trace back to Alexander the Great's journey through the region around 320 BCE. According to this narrative, the Macedonian leader and his men found refuge among the Kalash, leaving behind a legacy that endured for generations. This theory lacks solid evidence, but that doesn't diminish its appeal. On the contrary, the mystery fuels fascination and strengthens the world's intrigue with this community. The idea of a connection to one of history's most iconic figures adds to the allure, as the suggestion of an encounter between such distinct cultures, however unconfirmed, sparks curiosity and stirs debate. The absence of proof doesn't stop the legend from circulating, giving Kalash women an almost mythical aura. Their already striking eyes become even more captivating when tied to the possibility of a shared past with a legendary conqueror. It's not just a physical trait. It's the power of a story that invites people to imagine forgotten encounters in time. In the end, what stands out is how these narratives inspire questions, fuel the imagination, and broaden the reach of a secluded community in the mountains of Pakistan. Through this enduring mystery, the Kalash are connected to the global stage, carried by an enigma that refuses to fade.